Since the beginning of time, the age-long argument has been whether man gets to control his future or not. The answer is yes and no. Man gets to control his future by the choices he makes. As an individual, a third party can alter the future of another man by changing his choice slightly. Even if a choice is made a few minutes or a few seconds earlier, this results in a whole new story for the individual and the people who his choice affects. I am one of the watchers missed the part. Join me as we search the multiverse to see how one man's choice can completely change another man's life trajectory. Another man's life. Tony Stark had seen death before, no doubt, but now that Ultron was defeated thanks to the combined efforts of the Avengers, he realized how empty he felt. A few meters away from him sat a grieving Wanda Maximoff. She had just lost her brother. Damn it, he had taken everything away from her, and now he was the reason her brother was dead. He had created Ultron. He had to bear the blame for this. Tony could not stand the pain anymore. The number of people Ultron had killed in his plans to raise Nova Grand into the sky and crash it into the earth was just unbearable. Even if people did not directly blame him for the events, he knew it was only a matter of time. He closed his eyes, powered up his suit, and flew away. The Hulk had just finished watching a live video sent to him from Natasha. As soon as he began to speak, he turned off the screen. He could not afford to hear her voice and let Banner out. As he sat in the Quinjet, he wondered where this unimpressive machine would take him to. He was shocked how the doors of the Quinjet opened and Tony stepped in. "Sorry buddy, but you'll heal," Tony chuckled and immediately blasted Hulk out of the Quinjet. The last thing Hulk saw as he flew away was Tony shutting the doors of the Quinjet. The Avengers sat in the room, contemplating on their current predicament. Steve sat at the center as his head bowed. A few meters away from him was Wanda, who looked increasingly worried as well. The rest of the Avengers wore similar expressions. The only people absent from the meeting were Natasha Romanoff and Bruce Banner. Ever since the war against Ultron, they had kept their promise to each other and run away together, starting a life in an undisclosed location. Right now, the Avengers were wondering what decision to take now that the United Nations were on them. There was pressure to sign the Sokovia Accords, which would only subject their every move to monitor an international panel. It was quite disturbing. But perhaps what bothered them the most was the apparent disappearance of Tony Stark since the war against Ultron. According to Banner, he had borrowed the Quinjet and fled. At that moment, he was untraceable. Helmut Zemo was disturbed by Karba's stubbornness. This man had refused to give him information on the 1991 assassination, and this disturbed him exceedingly. Since Karpa wasn't going to give in, Zemo decided that it was best to end him at once. Leaving the tap on would be a nice way to die. Before he could carry out the act, a black figure attacked him, knocking him to the ground. The figure pulled off his hoodie, revealing herself to be Natasha. But before he could speak, Natasha revealed that she had been looking for Tony Stark for the past few months, since he fled. And during her search, she had got wind of Zemo's suspicions and his activities, especially his act of killing the Hydra scientists that worked on the Super Soldier program, and his interest in the Winter Soldier program. With a gun pointed at Zemo, Natasha noted that now he was going to help her find Tony Stark, or she would turn him over to Nick Fury. A month later, Natasha stood in the circle, hoping if her attempts to search the God of Thunder had worked this time. She had been trying to reach him ever since Zemo and Banner had arrived at some interesting news. Apparently, their research made them discover Tony was sucked into a wormhole, and eventually teleported into another realm. This was why he needed Thor's help. A flash of lightning and Natasha smiled when Thor stepped out of the lights. He quickly explained that Natasha had interrupted his quest for the Infinity Stones, and whatever reason she had to do it, it better be a good one. Natasha answered by noting that she had an idea of where Tony was, and she needed his help. After a while consulting with the gatekeeper of the Bifrost, Thor was able to locate Tony to Sakaar. Holding Natasha, Banner, and Zemo, he was able to transport all of them to Sakaar. One look at Sakaar and Thor signed. The place looked like a garbage dump. To make matters worse, a ship arrived and dangerous humanoid beings stepped out, immediately capturing Thor and his friends in a net. But before these beings could attack, a ship suddenly entered the atmosphere, opening itself to reveal a drunk Valkyrie who was able to rescue them using her amazing weaponry. Thor, Natasha, Zemo, and Banner could not hide their shock when they were brought before the new king of Sakaar. Before them was Tony Stark, who had a nice smirk and an odd set of clothes. Tony laughed and immediately ordered them to be released quickly, giving Natasha a hug. When she asked what happened, he said that he found his way to this place, with a lot of intellect had deposed the original king of Sakaar. With his intellect, he had disposed the original king of Sakaar. Now, he was living the best life he could ever have hoped for. Natasha was pained at this. She noted that everyone back on Earth was going through a lot, and they desperately needed Tony. But he was here, living a life that didn't belong to him. Banner also appeared disappointed and walked out with her. Nevertheless, Tony did not flinch. Thor stepped out of the room, and only Zemo and Tony remained. Tony immediately noted that the multitude of resources he had allowed him to watch a lot of his friends back on Earth. That was how he knew Zemo was after the perpetrator of the 1991 assassinations. Tony revealed that he knew Barnes was responsible for the assassination of his parents, and they were the victims. When Zemo questioned why Tony had not yet acted, Tony only smiled and said he needed the right champion. Outside, Thor was shocked to feel electricity coursing through his veins. He fell with a thud. Natasha tried to intervene, but suddenly Valkyrie stepped into the scene and knocked Natasha out. Seeing his lover hurt, Banner immediately transformed into the Hulk. But before the Hulk could attack, he was subdued by several forces. Tony stepped outside, noting that to come against Banner, the Avengers would be against him, as he would be acting out of revenge. Thus he needed the right army. And now with Zemo's help, he was going to figure out how Hydra brainwashed Bucky Barnes. He was going to brainwash Natasha, Thor, and Hulk to be his puppets. Then he would chase after Barnes and end anyone who tried to stop him. And that is going to be what if Tony Stark fled to Sakaar after the events of Avengers Age of Ultron. What do you think would happen? Do you think that this version of Tony Stark, this variant, would go completely insane and try to gain an army of heroes to fight against the Winter Soldier? That being said, if you guys did enjoy Season 1 Episode 8 of What If Tony Fled to Sakaar, do make sure to subscribe, like, share, and turn your notifications on so you and your friends are all up to date with the latest content. That being said, thanks for tuning in and have a fantastic day.